The internet has a cruel way of remembering what it wants and forgetting what it doesn't. And for years, Arian Curry has been trapped in the memory that refuses to fade. She wasn't the star, the wife, or the entrepreneur. She was the scandal. The name whispered with venom every time Martell Holt and Melody Sherry's broken marriage resurfaced online. They called her everything but human, side chick, mistress, concubine. The internet turned her pain into entertainment, and her silence into guilt. But silence only lasts until the truth finds its voice. And Arian, after years of being dragged, dismissed, and demonized, has decided to speak. Not with tears or apologies, but with receipts, details, and a tone that says she's no longer afraid of the fallout. What started as an affair has evolved into a power shift, a battle for control of a story the world thought it already knew. Because this time, Arian isn't the one being exposed. She's the one exposing. The cameras are rolling, the world is watching, and for the first time, the so-called villain might just become the storyteller. Stay ready, because this storm isn't about love anymore. It's about legacy, revenge, and survival. The internet never forgives, and it certainly never forgets. Especially when the scandal involves broken vows, shattered images, and the illusion of black excellence turned inside out. Arian Curry never asked to become the face of infidelity, but once her name collided with Martell Holt's and Melody Sherry's, she stopped being a person and became a headline. What began as whispers about a real estate mogul's double life soon exploded into a cultural storm. Martell and Melody had built their empire on perfection, faith, family, and financial success. To the world, they were the picture of unity, a power couple who symbolized success and resilience. But behind closed doors, cracks were already forming, and when Arian entered the picture, those cracks turned into fractures that split their world open. The cameras captured the aftermath, but not the full truth. Arian was painted as the other woman, the temptress who ruined a marriage. Martell, though guilty, was still allowed to be complicated, a man who made mistakes. Arian, on the other hand, became a symbol of betrayal. Every interview, every tweet, every reunion special turned her name into an insult. She couldn't scroll online without seeing her face used as a meme or her name reduced to a warning. She was no longer a person, just a headline stretched across blogs and gossip channels. For years, she bit her tongue, convincing herself that silence was safer than feeding the fire. But silence comes with a price, and every rumor, every insult chipped away at her identity until she barely recognized the woman in the mirror. The word concubine became her breaking point, a label that stripped her of dignity and made her story sound like a script written by strangers. When she went live on Instagram, her voice cracked, but her words cut sharp. "I'm tired of being disrespected," she said, emotion bleeding through every syllable. "Y'all act like I don't have feelings. Like I wasn't lied to. Like I wanted my life to turn into this circus." It wasn't just an outburst, it was a confession, raw and unfiltered. For the first time in years, people stopped scrolling and listened. The comments section filled with shock, empathy, and skepticism all at once. Arian had finally spoken, and whether they believed her or not, the world couldn't look away. Martell's reaction was as predictable as it was revealing. Behind the polished smile and rebranded image of a man who had grown, there was panic. He had spent years rebuilding his public persona, turning himself into a symbol of redemption and fatherhood, carefully distancing his name from the scandal that nearly ended his career. But Arian's live stream cracked open the door he had worked so hard to close. Her words didn't just expose old wounds, they threatened to dismantle the illusion he'd created. Sources whispered that he called her, angry and pleading in the same breath, reminding her of their child, their past, and the fragile peace they'd both maintained for years. But Arian wasn't moved. After spending years carrying the weight of everyone else's version of her story, she was done being careful. For the first time, she realized the power had shifted. She was no longer the secret. She was the headline. The whispers only intensified when she was spotted meeting with a high-profile lawyer known for handling messy celebrity disputes. Suddenly, the internet lit up again. Speculation, theories, and warnings flooded every corner of social media. Was she preparing to sue Martell? To expose private messages, business secrets, or something even darker? Melody, the ex-wife who had turned her pain into a brand of empowerment, stayed silent. She didn't need to speak. Her silence was strategy. But privately, even she couldn't ignore the growing noise. Arian's voice, once dismissed as irrelevant, had become dangerous. Every word she spoke now carried the power to shake the foundation of the empire that Martell and Melody once built together. And whether the world wanted to admit it or not, the woman they once called a homewrecker was finally rewriting the rules of the game. The lawyer's office was cold, clinical and far removed from the chaos of social media. Arian sat across from Miss Stern, a woman whose calm demeanor could silence any room. The conversation was sharp, heavy with implications. Defamation, breach of contract, emotional distress. Every word carried the weight of consequences Arian hadn't fully considered. Martell Holt has influence and money, Miss Stern said firmly. If you do this, be prepared for a fight. Arian hesitated, her hands gripping the edge of her chair. For years, she had been defined by other people's words. Every insult, every meme, every headline had built a cage around her. But now she had a chance to rewrite her story, even if it came at a price. I have to, she whispered. I can't let him keep controlling the narrative. The decision was made. The tell-all interview was greenlit by a major streaming platform that promised her full creative control, a substantial payout, and the kind of exposure she had once been denied. It was risky, but it was freedom. When the cameras started rolling, Arian didn't hold back. She spoke about the manipulation, the half-truths, and the quiet emotional warfare that never made it to television. She revealed moments that changed everything. Private conversations, broken promises, and the loneliness of being someone's secret. For the first time, she owned her pain and her part in it. The interview went viral within hours. Hashtags trended worldwide, reactions poured in, and the internet split in two. Some praised her courage, calling it overdue justice. Others accused her of clout-chasing and monetizing pain. Martell's response was swift and furious. He released a statement denying her claims and threatening legal action. But the damage was already done. The illusion was shattered. Even Melody, who had built her empire on strength and silence, couldn't ignore how the public conversation had shifted. For years, everyone thought they knew the story. Now they weren't so sure. Arian Curry had taken back the narrative, whether the world liked it or not. Maybe she wouldn't find redemption, maybe she'd lose even more, but for the first time, the story belonged to her. The villain had finally become the voice, and the world was still listening. The aftermath wasn't quiet. It was electric. The story that started as whispers had turned into an earthquake, and Arian Curry was standing right in the middle of it, unapologetic, unfiltered, and unafraid. Her name was everywhere, her face plastered across timelines, her words dissected like scripture. For years, she had been the villain in everyone else's version of events. Now she was the narrator. Martell Holt tried to fight back, scheduling interviews, smiling for cameras, and preaching forgiveness. But his words no longer carried the same weight. The charm had worn thin, and behind every polished sentence was the panic of a man losing control. Melody stayed silent, a move that only made people talk more. Her silence was power, but Arian's voice was louder. The game had changed, and everyone knew it. What Arian did wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclamation. She wasn't asking to be liked or forgiven. She was demanding to be understood. For once, she wasn't the footnote in Martell's downfall or Melody's redemption. She was her own headline. The woman everyone tried to bury had learned how to dig herself out. And maybe that's what made her dangerous. Not her mistakes, but her survival. Because in a world that profits off women's pain, Arian Curry turned hers into power. The world may never agree on who was right or wrong, but one truth remains. She finally took back her voice, and no one could silence her again. And if this saga has taught us anything, it's that every scandal has layers, every villain has a story, and every silence hides a storm waiting to break. So stay locked in, because this isn't the end, it's just another beginning. You're watching The Hype Spill, where the truth always finds its mic. Where the truth always finds its mic.